In this slideshow, and in the next one as well, really, I'm talking about gender in television, as well as in the next one, sexuality in television. Now, for this slideshow in particular, it's important to recognize that I'm not talking about representation. That is, I'm not talking about the different kinds of female characters that appear on TV. Instead, I'm talking about television having a history of being a gendered medium. What that means is that throughout its history, particular kinds of content have been produced in order to appeal to specific genders. That means there have been assumptions made about what kinds of TV women like, what kinds of TV men like, and when they're going to watch those things. So that's what we mean when we say television has a history of being a gendered medium. Particular kinds of content for men, particular kinds of content for women, and when that's programmed is going to be influenced by that as well. I have here another classic ad from the 50s that illustrates for us these very ideas at the moment when television was becoming a part of people's households. This ad is all about selling people an extra TV. And if you look at the top of it, you can see it says too much traffic for one TV, and it gives us a nice vignette here, a scene into these people's houses. And in the top part of it, it's a comic book. And you'll notice there's a man and he's got a tie on still, but he's smoking this pipe, and we're to assume that he's home from work. And he's got this rambunctious punk kid who's riding around on a tricycle, and he's changing the channel, getting in the way of mom who's trying to vacuum at the same time. So our message from that top picture is that men watch TV when they're home from work, and that's difficult for them to relax and do because mom's getting in the way with the vacuum and the bratty kids in there just generally getting in the way as well. So the key there, though, that we see that's quite different, think about how the male and the female differs. Now, in the top comic book picture, mom is trying to vacuum. Look at the scene below. So the scene below, which is a photograph, is much more tranquil because they have a TV, right? But a second TV, that is. But you can see it's basically holding up the same roles for how people are expected to live their lives. Dad is off in his room watching football, relaxing there, still got his dress shirt on. In the separate room, the kitchen apparently, mom has her own TV set and the daughter's sitting there with her, and we can see mom has a bowl and apparently she's watching a cooking show. So mom can still be productive. And this is the thing that we see a lot with how television was imagined to fit into people's lives. Men would watch TV to relax after work. Women, television had to be a part of their daily lives in the home. Television was about, in many ways, being productive, or at least not getting in the way of them working. All right, so if we go back again to think about this history of television as a gendered medium, we have to go back to prior to TV. And in fact, the radio era really set this stuff into the way it would be for a long time. And that is that the radio industry, the broadcasting industry, had cultivated a female audience during daytime. They had established particular kinds of programs and relationships with advertisers that then carried on into TV. That meant lots of soap operas and also some other kinds of shows. But those would continue. And the idea, again, being that women were home during the day, so that's when you reached them. And men were working, so when they came home, you would reach them during prime time. So we have those ideas, but at the same time, it's kind of interesting because television, because it was a domestic medium, because it fit in the home, it was considered somehow feminizing and perhaps even dangerous for men, that they could become too lazy if they became too close to the TV. If they just, and it kind of cuts against those images that we see of men relaxing at the home with the television set. They have to be careful or they can become too lazy and never get out of the house. Now, we don't see that with women. In fact, we see the opposite because ads have to show us that actually women can be very productive with TV. So the interesting thing about daytime TV, like the radio version, but television was it was that much more important because, of course, it's a visual medium. Daytime TV was produced to be not just compatible with the female viewer's life, but part of her ideal daily schedule. That is, they don't just want it to be something that they might want to watch, but something that is compatible with what they have to do around the house. So there are a couple of different components to what that meant. One was daytime TV had to capture divided attention of women in the home. Why was their attention divided? Well, because they're supposed to be doing other things. They're cleaning, they're cooking, they're going to different rooms. They can't just sit there and stare at the TV the whole time. So the solution to that was to have stories that have very segmented storylines and lots of different storylines. That would allow people to get up and leave after one storyline was over, not wait until the commercial. There's also the constant repetition of information or exposition, explanation of what's happening, why it's happening. So if you did happen to be in another room and missed it, chances are you'll hear it explained again. Now, I just want to pause for a second and reiterate. This is another key way that we can think about television as culture being directly impacted by the commercial demands. And the texts, the narratives, the stories that we experience being the way they are because of the idea that you have to make them in order to fit with people's lives and what they're doing outside of TV. You have to repeat information a lot because they're not going to be able to see everything. They're going to have to be out and about. And this is one of the things that soap operas traditionally been made fun of, is that people are always explaining things and talking about things over and over and over again. Well, there's a reason for that. The reason is they expected that women at home wouldn't be able to give all their attention to it. So they needed to be able to repeat things like that. Now, the other thing, besides being compatible, was to make television a routine habit. Not just that it would be compatible, but that they would want it to help be part of their lives. It would be useful to them. So in order to make TV a routine habit, something that they did every day, they organized programs throughout the day that would coincide with things that women might be doing differently. And I've got a couple of different ads here. These are both for the NBC network. Some of these shows still exist. Actually, Today, Home and Tonight. The Today Show still exists and the Tonight Show still exists. But they were programmed. Those were all three stripped programming in the morning, a little bit later, and then late at night. That were supposed to be, you stay with NBC, these are the key personalities all throughout the day that will be there to be your friends from breakfast to bedtime, is what the line says. The other ad says, where did the morning go? And there's a woman, and she's cleaning the house. She's got an apron on, she's got a duster, and she also has pumps on. I think that's hilarious. And it's got the various different shows that are coming on. So the idea being, you'll be able to get your work done, but you'll also be distracted enough that the time will go by very quickly. So those are examples of programming and promotion. Another that's very important is the idea that television would be a consumer educator. That is the idea that you will be a better consumer because you watch TV. You're going to learn the things that you want to buy in order to be better at your job as a mom or as a housewife. That is, know how to consume properly in order to do better in those things. And that started out being for women, but those kinds of programs also still exist for men as well. So if you think now about TV and the ways in which it works as a consumer educator, there are programs about using tools to build things. There are fashion shows, how to dress better. Lots of different things that are about television being a consumer educator. And of course that makes sense because television is a commercial medium and you want to teach people how to buy. You want to accustom people to buying things to make them feel more successful and overall happy. Okay, now there are two key types of daytime programming throughout TV history that carried over from radio. The serial or otherwise soap opera, those daily shows that featured lots and lots of narrative enigmas that would go on forever and ever. And then there's also the magazine format show, which was what the Today Show essentially was. The magazine format will include some hard news quickly, soft news investigative, and then other like on-camera guests or things that explicitly fall into that consumer educator role. So, for example, if you ever watch the Today Show, every day they've got some kind of guest come on and talk to you about some new kind of like the best toys to get for your kids this season, or how to make this particular recipe that everybody's going to love, or this appliance and how it'll make your life easier. Those kinds of stories fit in well with the magazine format. And again, both these kinds of programs, soap operas and magazine formats, they're segmented. They have lots of short, quick segments, so you don't have to sit and watch the whole thing. So I'm going to stop there.